the mathematician. If I'd had more time, I would have created a shorter presentation.
Yeah, Mark Twain, it's more difficult to write a short story than a long story.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to record this, and then I'll post it up on the Group IO file section for the mic and key.
Are you able to edit the, oh, never mind. Since it's a recording, I should behave myself.
I guess the question would be is why not post it at the presentation website?
On YouTube?
Yeah, the YouTube channel that the club has.
Well, you can do that. I'll put it on the Group IO file thing.
It would help since we only have 7 videos, I think, up on the YouTube channel.
So
Cool.
if you want to put it there, great.
I'll take care of it and put it there.
All right.
Okay, David, I'm going to mute everybody, and then you can unmute yourself and start it up. It's all yours.
All right. Let's share my screen. Hopefully that's working. So this thing's full screen for me, so I'm not going to be reading the chat. There will be time for questions at the end. Just bear in mind, I may not have answers at this point. So let's rock and roll. So we're talking about field day for this year. It's going to be very different. So I've got a bunch of content that I want to talk to you guys about, and we will have time at the end for questions. So first things first, just to kind of level set, let's talk about the decision. So what was the decision that the board made? So the board met on Tuesday night. We've been putting off the decision to decide what to do about field day for as long as possible. Unfortunately, to do field day at Fort Flagler, we really need to have 3 things working, and they're kind of actually, it turns out it's interesting, they're actually 3 completely different things managed by 3 completely different, or seemingly different parts of the Park Service. So one thing is we need our group campground reservation to be honored. We need our barracks reservation to be honored, and we also need a special event application to be approved. That's what allows us to, to have like a permanent setup down on the beach and do all the things we do on the bluff. So the special event, we tried to get it approved. We modified it. We put in a bunch of stuff around social distancing and changes we were going to make to our event. However, that is not going to be approved. The retreat center, which manages the barracks, has canceled our reservation, and we don't have any definitive information on the group campground reservation except that it looks like it's going to be canceled as well. If it wasn't, and I just haven't missed it.
It was canceled.
It was canceled. So yeah, so all 3 things were canceled. So that makes it pretty much impossible to do the event at Fort Flagler. So the second kind of half of the decision is, okay, if we can't do the event at Fort Flagler, could we do something else, right? So we have, club members have property. We could take our equipment trailer, our tower trailer, wherever we want. Our tower trailer actually has a tilt up, crank up tower on it. So we don't have to be at Fort Flagler to do some sort of, we could do a 2A or a 3A operation somewhere else. However, the board, and this was my idea and the board agreed with it, we didn't discuss it too much, but so if you don't like it, you can blame it on me. The board decided that we felt kind of 2 factors. One is we felt it would be irresponsible of us to plan for an event that didn't fit whatever the current governmental criteria is at the time. So, like currently in King County, for example, like groups of strangers more than 5 is like maybe not allowed, right? So we felt technically, it might be irresponsible of the club to encourage or try to influence people to have some kind of event or come to an event that maybe didn't meet the guidelines. Secondarily, there's so much uncertainty around the guidelines. Like it's possible that, by the time field day starts up, a larger event could be allowable, but we just have no idea. So we can't plan. And, we recognize that, some people have jobs and kids and other things where, you need a couple weeks notice to be able to pull things off. And it's, we felt that, even if we were able to kind of pull off an event somewhere at the last minute, that it may be unfair that many club members would get left out because they maybe wouldn't have the flexibility or the ability to attend. And also some club members, not all of us are like spring chickens anymore. Some club members are very concerned about their health, and we didn't want them to feel pressured or to have to miss out. So we decided that we would not organize sort of another club event somewhere. So where does that leave us? What are we going to do? What are we going to do for field day? So fortunately, the ARL did something really cool. But let's talk a little bit, because I know we have a lot of new people. So let's just talk briefly about what field day is, and then I'll kind of get into how we might do it differently. So field day, this is the text from the ARL site. So the goal is to work as many stations as possible on the bands where contesting is allowed. So notice, like you say, for example, your 17-meter band is not on this list. So behave yourself, everyone. And in doing so, learn to operate in abnormal situations and in less than optimal conditions. So the big idea is that the focus of field day is to get out, operate in some kind of field situation, some type of emergency type situation. So historically, operating from your house has been pretty actively discouraged through the rules. It's like you could do it, but it's not a point taking exercise, or it's not easy to get a lot of points as a home station. The idea was to get you to get out and do something unusual that would test your skills. So what is field day, from our point of view? This is kind of our list. It's a nationwide event, so it means tons of hams throughout the U.S. are going to be participating. It's about public service, but it's also about getting out and playing around with your gear. It is about getting on the air. So, I know there are some people who aren't on the air very much, but at field day, all hams are sort of compelled to try to get on the air. It's kind of like Christmas time and people going to church, right? You may not go to church all year, but you might be there on Christmas and Easter. Field day is Christmas for amateur radio, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not a contest. So field day technically is not a contest. However, we do keep score. So you can score points. And it is an opportunity to really try out all your radio equipment. So, if you're like me and you've got a crank IR hanging out in the garage, it's the time to set that thing out somewhere portable and see if it really works. It's also a time to experiment with stuff. So the rule changes for 2020. So this is a really big deal. So in a normal field day year, Class D station. So Class D station is somebody operating from their already set up home station on commercial power. So on, normal home power. In a normal year, Class D stations can participate in field day, of course, but they can only record points for contacts that they make with non-Class D stations. So in other words, they can make contacts with clubs or people operating portable or people operating mobile. They can get points for that, but they don't get any points for working another Class D station because, traditionally at home with your station you already have set up running on regular power is kind of not the point of field day. However, this year, Class D stations can count contacts with other Class D stations. So what this means is, if you want to, you can use your home station to participate in field day with no restrictions. So just make as many QSOs as you want, and they all count. They all count for points. So the second change, and this is a really, really big deal for us, the second change is that an aggregate club score will be allowed for field day. So what does that mean? So field day, traditionally, when your club operates in a single location with the club call sign, and there's restrictions around how big that operation can be and how close those transmitters and antennas need to be with each other. They have to be within a 1,000-foot circle. So you can't have, a club member at the beach and a club member on a mountain somewhere all operating with the club call and call it a field day operation. They have to be together in one place. And then you would submit that as one submission to field day, and you would get whatever points that the club earned for that activity. In other contests, there's an idea of an aggregate club score where your club members may participate from home or various locations, and when they report their individual scores, their individual entries, those entries are aggregated underneath the club's name so that you can have a club score even though you weren't operating at a single location. And the ARL is allowing that for this year's field day, and this is what we're going to do. So we're going to operate independently, but, and I'm going to show you how this needs to be done. When you submit your scores, when you submit your field day entries, you are going to reference our club so that we can have a club score, so that the club, even though we can't all be together, will be participating in field day together. So 3 ways that you can participate, and there might be other ways, but these are the ways that I'm thinking about. This is what I'm here to help facilitate. So the first one is you can operate solo or with your family members, or with your really close friends, as long as you're not breaking your local rules, right? So you go out, you set up in your backyard, you operate from your home station, you go to a mountaintop somewhere, you do whatever you're going to do, and you operate. And you would report your score, your entry under your call sign, and you would report that individually. The second option is, if club members are interested in doing this, we will be facilitating hosting club members at your location. Now, that could be your house. It could be if you decide, hey, I'm going to go set up in a mountaintop somewhere, and you can, and that's allowed. You could host people at a location like that. There's no restrictions on that. But what I'll be doing is I'll be taking signups from people who are willing to host. Again, from the club perspective, we'd strongly encourage that you stick within whatever the government recommended limitations are for wherever you're going to be having your field day. So if you're going to set up somewhere else where maybe more people are allowed, that's up to you. We just encourage that you obey the local guidelines. And then also bear in mind, in theory, like, okay, I'm not a virus specialist, but like in theory, like if you say, oh, I'm going to set up in Ferry County where there are no people and there's no restrictions, but if you bring a bunch of people from King County, that might be bad. So anyway, just follow your local rules. That's between you and the government. But we'll be taking signups for people who are willing to host, and some basic information about how many people you can host and what type of operation you're planning to have. And then I'll be publishing that list of available hosts back out to the club and facilitating signups. Obviously, if you say, well, I'm going to host some club members at my house, but I don't want just anybody, I want my buddy, certain people. Okay, fine. Don't sign up. I'll put you in class 1 there, operate solo or with your special invited guests, that's fine. But if people want to host, please do sign up. And then obviously option 3 will be to operate at a host location. So there are people who don't have HF, don't have antennas, live in apartments, et cetera, may still want to participate in field day. And if we have hosts available for you, then I will be publishing that information out, and we can make those connections and hopefully find you a place. So know your class. So here's the thing that's interesting about field day, and God bless Ivy for putting so much time and thought into field day and all field day chairmen. So there's a bunch of rules around field day. For a small operation, they're pretty straightforward. So don't be too intimidated. But it's important to know your class. And one of the things I remember, from field days past is when people are at home or they're wandering around on their HT or they're mobile in their car, they may participate in field day and they often don't know what their class is. So I bet all of you that have done field day before have remembered times where, especially on VHF, where you're dying for contacts, and you're talking to somebody and they're like, and you go, what's your exchange? And they go, what's an exchange, right? And you're asking, well, what are you doing? Are you at home? Or, oh, I'm at the park with my HT. Okay. And then you tell them, oh, you're, I think you're 1 Bravo, right? Or something like that. And then you put them in the logbook. So it's important to know what your class is. So the first off is if you do nothing, if you got something at home, you've got a radio of any kind, you're just operating a single transmitter at a time. That's important. Not a single transmitter like I was using my HT an hour ago and I'm using my HF radio now. That's not two. That would just be a single one. And if you're at home on commercial power, you're 1D, 1 delta. So that's your class. So if you do nothing, that's the most common one, I think, on field day, particularly on HF where you're trying to talk to people. What are you? Where are you? You're 1 delta. If you're just at home on your already established plugged in station with your antenna that's been up for months and years and you're on commercial power, you're 1 delta. Other classes you might use, and you can also, I'm going to show you the rules link. It's pretty easy to find the rules, but I just wanted to briefly touch on, if you say, okay, that's great, but I'm not going to stay home. I'm going to do something else. I would encourage you to do that, but you need to know what your class is. So a class A is a club or an individual with 3 or more people. So like our normal field day operation is a class A operation. It's going to be on battery or emergency power. So you're not going to be on main, commercial electricity. So if you're in your backyard and you ran an extension cord, you're going to be a home station on commercial power. You're not going to be an alpha. If you're in your backyard and you're running off a generator, battery, solar, something that's disconnected from the house, you're alpha. If you have 3 or more people. If you only have 1 or 2 people, so if it's you by yourself and you're on emergency power, battery, solar power, whatever that is, then you're a Bravo station. So Alpha and Bravo are basically the same. Alpha is a group of 3 or more people using 1 call sign, and Bravo is 1 or 2 people using 1 call sign. Charlie is an important one to talk about. So Charlie is mobile, but that's mobile in your vehicle when it's normally operated that way. So what do I mean by that? If you have a radio that's already installed in your vehicle, you have an antenna that's already mounted on your vehicle and you're operating, you're 1 Charlie, you're mobile. If you were to say, take your car somewhere, have a bunch of gear in the back, and then, when you get there, pop the hatchback or, the trunk or whatever and run some wires out and set up an antenna and operate portable that way, you're going to be a Bravo or an Alpha, depending on how many people you have. So think of Charlie as like, if I already have an HF radio with an antenna in my vehicle, or I'm using my VHF radio that's normally in my vehicle, I'm not doing anything weird to set up for field day, I'm a Charlie. If I'm setting up, then I'm a Bravo. And I just noticed that extra P. I deleted that extra P on that Bravo line. And then, of course, Delta, we already talked about, it's home station on commercial power. And then Echo, or E, is going to be a home station on emergency power. So I guess maybe some of you guys would do this, convince the wife, honey, we're going to run on the generator this weekend. That would be Echo. I don't normally hear very many echoes, but it could happen, I suppose. Or maybe you could disconnect your station and plug it into a battery if you wanted to be an Echo. So know your exchange. This one's a little bit easier. So what is the field day exchange? So field day is cool because the exchange is really, really simple. So unlike a lot of other contests that might have a serial number, or they might have a more complex exchange where you might be exchanging your name and other information, the field day exchange is really simple. It is simply your class, which is the number of transmitters you're operating simultaneously, plus the letter that we just discussed. So if I'm in my backyard running on battery power, I'm 1 Bravo. And then it's the ARL section that you're in. So if you're in Western Washington, so Washington is split in half. There's Western Washington and Eastern Washington. So if you're in Western Washington, it's Western Washington, or Whiskey Alpha. And if you're in Eastern Washington, it's Eastern Washington, Echo Whiskey Alpha. So for example, if I'm at home and I'm on my home station on commercial power, I would be 1 Delta Western Washington. So that's my exchange. The exchange is your call sign plus your class and your location. So for me, my exchange would be WA7DY 1 Delta Western Washington. Or oftentimes, if you're on HF, you're going to be 1 Delta Whiskey Alpha, right? So that's your exchange. If you were portable, like I mentioned, in your backyard, you would be 1 Bravo Whiskey Alpha. Or if you had gone to Eastern Washington, you'll be 1 Bravo Eastern Washington. So that's what you're going to be sending, and that's what you're going to be receiving. So what you're logging is the other station's call sign and their class and their location. So again, know your class. You can check the field day rules. Again, they're right there on the ARRL website. They're pretty easy to find. They're kind of complicated, but if you read them just a little carefully, you'll notice that a lot of the complication goes away when you're not doing a big club operation. So if you're not going, you don't have a GOTA station, you don't have public officials visiting, et cetera, et cetera. They get fairly simple. So don't be too intimidated by those. I will note though, there is a special extra points. There's some opportunities to score some extra points. One is if you operate QRP, all your QSOs are 5 points. There's a 5-point multiplier. If you operate CW, all your points are 3. So imagine if you were QRP and CW. I don't know if you can double dip. Maybe I don't know. Ivy might know. I don't know. But review the rules. Again, it's not a contest, but we do keep score. So, having a good score might be a good thing to shoot for. There's also, if I didn't mention, I was just thinking about it, I don't know if I said it, but there's also a bonus for operating off renewable power. So if you have a solar power setup, you get a certain amount of points for the first so many QSOs that you do on solar power. So that's another bonus that you can sign up for that's not, for many people, not too difficult to get. So logging options. So a lot of us pretty casual about logging, don't do much contesting. So I wanted to just mention briefly, this is not an exhaustive list. I did some brief research. I just wanted to mention about logging. So first is N1MM is free software. It has been updated for Field Day 2020, which means it knows that you're allowed to get points for 1 Delta contacts. It is free. However, pay close attention to the install instructions because you need to do an installation and then do an update in order to get the Field Day 2020 rules. In N1MM, they don't update their installer every time they come out with a new version, so that you just need to pay close attention to that. But it is free. It's reasonably-ish, I think, easy to use, but I would definitely suggest you try it before Field Day if you're going to use it. Another option is N3 FJP. So N3 FJP is the software that we as a club use for Field Day. I think personally it's a little bit easier to use than N1MM. It's a little more straightforward. There is a specific Field Day version of the software. However, N3 FJP is not free. It costs $8.99 for the Field Day version, and I think $25 for the full-blown version, which does everything. I was looking at that and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to spend $9 on it. Then I thought, well, I'm not driving to Fort Flagler. I probably would have spent more than $9 worth of gas, just that expense alone. So maybe I'm thinking about maybe popping for a copy of that one. The install of it is much simpler. There's a single special Field Day version, so you don't really have to worry too much, like, did I get the right version? Does it know about Field Day 2020? And like I said, it is what we use at Field Day. So those of you that have logged it at the K7 LED Field Day before will be a little more familiar with it. There's a little bit of setup with it. You got to create like a database the first time, but if you just say I'm new, it's not too bad. And then, of course, if your existing logging software, if you use Ham Radio Deluxe or any of the other loggers, as long as they put out the Cabrillo format, I think you'll be okay. But I think we can semi-safely recommend these two options. So I just wanted to drop that idea in your head. The N1MM is updated for Field Day. It is free. Might be a teeny bit harder to set up, but a lot of people really like it, use it a lot. And then N3 FJP, more Field Day specific, but it does cost money. And I think it's just a tiny bit easier to set up. So when is Field Day? So Field Day starts officially Saturday, June 27th at 11 a.m. and it ends Sunday, June 28th at 11 a.m. You can start setup in the 24 hours, or I might get the rules wrong. You can start setting up the day before. So if you have a temporary antenna or something that you're going to put up for field day use and you want to play by the rules, you would set that up the day before, in order to be in order to not turn yourself into a home station. So just keep that in mind. If you really want to be a true Alpha or Bravo station, then you're setting up the day before. If you put up your antenna like the Monday before, technically that would be against the spirit of field day. So how do you submit your results? This is the part where I wanted to highlight that you really need, I really beg you all, please, please, if you're going to submit results, let's make sure we get the club name that we submitted all exactly the same. So, so you'll be submitting results via the web at this URL. Again, it's fairly easy to find on the ARL site. Results need to be submitted within a month after the end of field day, so by July 28th. So don't procrastinate too long, like me and my tax return, which I might still be poking at. Because when they told me I had till July, I was like, yeah, I'll wait till July. So when you submit your results, I did a little snip here. You'll see where it says club or group name. So what I'd like everyone to do, please, please submit your results like this. And I will also send an email out with this information. But if you could submit it as Mike and Key ARC, spelled and with the ampersand and the ARC, if you could make it look exactly like that, that'll help our aggregate club results get aggregated. So I use this name because that's what we've used as our club name in the past for our past club field day results. So that's Mike and Key ARC. I will send an email out with a link to this presentation and with this information specifically. But it's really, really important that when you submit your results that you please use that club name, because that's going to be our field day for this year. And I'm expecting that we'll turn in a strong showing, because I know we have some fabulous contesters in the club that I think will be able to rip off a ton of contacts no matter where they are. And I know we have a lot of very enthusiastic club members, a lot of very enthusiastic new club members. So I have really, really high hopes for what you guys are going to do. I'm sure it'll blow us all away. So next steps, so I mentioned before that I'll be coordinating hosts. So if you're interested in hosting, I don't expect you to copy that link there. Again, I'm going to send this presentation out. There's a QR code there. If you wanted to like take your phone and like scan it right now, you could. But I'll be sending out this link after this meeting is done. You can go, I have a really short form, name, address, are you going to do the whole 24 hours? If not, what are you going to do? And then you give us kind of the rough idea of how many people do you think you can host, and roughly what do you think you're going to do? So like if you could just tell us something like, I'm going to have two stations, one's going to be doing 40 meter CW and the other one's going to be doing 20 meter sideband, or I'm going to have, whatever, just give us a rough idea of what it is you think you might be doing. That way when we publish the available hosts back out to the club, people can look and see, we can pair up our CW ops and things like that, so that people know what they're getting into. So let's see, like I said, I'll be sending that out to you all after this meeting. So I'm down to questions. Sorry, I apologize. I know the chat's been blinking and I've been ignoring it.
So I've just been posting the URLs that you've been putting up and things like that. And Ivy's got a few comments in there also.
Okay, so let's see.
So raise your hand if you have questions and we'll take them.
Okay, yeah, I'll ignore the chat and make everybody that asks a question ask it again. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna stop sharing because this is the last slide. Everybody can stare at my face instead. Let me open the chat or the participants list. So let's see, looks like Al has a question. Al.
Yeah, I'm not in Western Washington. I'm in Southern California.
Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, so, so, so Southern California, you'll need to look up the ARL map.
Yeah,
Southern California has a lot of sections, a lot of them. I want to say like 5 or 6, right? There's a bunch. So depending on where you're at, I think even like Orange County has its own section. So you'll need to look it up depending on where you're at. It may vary.
that would be on the ARRL website.
It's the standard ARL sections, which I think are used in some other contests.
Okay, that's good. And any band, any frequency. So I certainly have 2 meter 440. I quite likely will have HF.
Yeah. So so a couple notes on bands and operating that I didn't mention or I didn't go into. So first off is it is treated like a contest. So the 12 meter band, is there a 12 meter band? Did I just invent 12 meter band?
17,
17 meters. The bands that you normally can't contest on, you can't do field day on. Another note is repeater operation is not allowed for field day contacts. So if you do VHF or UHF, it would be simplex contacts, except if you make a satellite contact. Satellites are the one repeater that are allowed. So satellite contacts are fine, but repeater contacts are not. Though if you were to make friends on a repeater and then move over to simplex and make a bunch of QSOs, that's perfectly okay.
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions. I think I'm good for now. You can move on, but I reserve the right to raise my hand again.
Those are great questions. Thanks, Al. You actually asked things I kind of meant to cover but forgot. So let's see. Steve has a question. Steve, go ahead.
So this is going to be aggregate. So I mean, so I assume obviously if we make a contact with another station, obviously that would be discounted because we're in the same club.
No, contacts. Right. Yeah, contacts within the club are fine. So okay. even contacts with other club members are fine. I had considered maybe the idea before ARL changed their rules of maybe us doing a contest within the event of how many contacts could you get with other club members, and then we would manage that. But now I'm not sure. Plus, I'm also realizing the practical aspects of that. I don't know if I'm up for the calculus of figuring out that score, but in theory it's possible. But
and so obviously no issue if I operate 10, 15, 20, and 40, I'm not going to block someone else from operating that same band. So it's all okay. All right.
Yeah. So originally when I created this presentation, I had on the first page something like K7 LED 2020 field day, us alone together, and then I decided it was too cheesy and I deleted it. But we are, even though we're off on our own, we are participating as a club. We're getting a score as a club.
Okay. All right. That's it for right now.
Let's see. I think Randy raised
next.
his hand. Yeah, Randy raised his hand.
Go ahead, Randy.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I was just wondering on the aggregate score, if we're using multi mode, so if I operate CW digital and voice across multiple bands, when the aggregate is done, are all those contacts joined into the same aggregate, or is it different aggregates for each mode?
No, so again, this is just based on what I've read. I'm not an expert with ARL. I'm just normally okay at reading rules and figuring out what they mean. So basically what's happening is you're going to do your own field day thing. You're going to calculate your own score and submit your own results, and whatever multipliers or different, whatever multipliers are scoring, happens within your operation is what it is, right? And that's going to produce a total number for you. And then what they're doing is they're associating kind of each of our individual totals with the whole.
Okay, so if I ran multi, which you're allowed to do.
Come here, see baby.
So that would be the same thing. So basically I can run 2 stations at the same time.
Look at baby.
And aggregate those scores.
Baby.
Yeah, for you. So if you run, so the rule is about, so the class rules are about simultaneous transmitters. Sorry, there's a there's like a crazy like car rally going on in my neighborhood, so people are driving around honking. So it's okay. I don't have to get the guns. It looks safe. So the transmitter rule is about simultaneous transmitters. So for example, if I'm a single op, but let's say I have 5 different radios that could do 5 different things, and I switch, I'm going to use this radio for CW, I'm going to use this radio for digital. I mean, as long as I only operate with one radio at a time, then I'm still a 1.
Like a multi-single.
Yeah. If I had 2 people here, like let's say a miracle occurs and I convince my wife to do field day with me, which will probably never happen. But let's say it did, and we, she's operating on one radio and I'm operating on the other with my call sign because I'm supervising, right? Then I would be a 2. Right. So it's about simultaneous. If you're by yourself or you never use more than one transmitter at a time, then you can stay a 1.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying, multi is okay.
Yeah, field day is, in general, from a rules perspective, I'm not really a contest expert, but in general, the exchange and the rules are somewhat simpler for field day relative to other contests, right? So you're really encouraged to just kind of try everything and log everything.
Okay.
Like if you have
let me comment here a second. So the aggregation is on the total score, not on individual bands, modes, or anything else.
Right. So each individual person reporting, your total score will get lumped in with the mic and key score, but there's no reconciliation within, like if I'm QRP and you're not, then that doesn't make me stop being QRP. I'm still
Right.
QRP for my total score. It's just they're aggregating it to say here's what this club did in the aggregate.
So it's basically your own separate field days, and then you add them all those different field days together.
Exactly.
Okay, so James
James was
is up next.
Okay, so what would my class be if I'm one person, one radio, and I'm on batteries? And the second part of the question is, do I get more points for having a solar panel or not?
Yeah. So if you're one person and you're on battery or some kind of off the grid emergency power, whatever that might be, then, oh wait, are you portable or are you at home?
I'm at home.
So you take your home station, which would normally be plugged into commercial power, and you run it off a battery.
Right.
So you'd be Echo. Yeah, you'd be 1E, 1 Echo.
1E. And do you get extra points for being solarized?
Yeah, so in the rules, and I should know this because I was the points share for like 2 or 3 years. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you get points for like the first, what is it, Phil? We did it with Phil.
10.
10? Yeah, you get bonus points for the first 10 QSOs you make with renewal.
Points.
Is it
100 points, yeah.
You do have to read the rules carefully, because if you're below 3A, some of the bonus points don't apply to you.
Oh.
Well, we never had to worry about that before, so I don't know.
Fun of doing the submission for the club, and it's quite complicated. In the rules package, I think starting about page 43, there's like a worksheet you can actually write out with everything, and it'll tell you sort of what you can get, points for. Work on that sheet first, and then you can submit it from using that worksheet. If you're using 5 watts or less, you get a QSO multiplier of 5. If you're 150 watts or less, you get a QSO multiplier of 2, and over 150 watts, you get 1. Okay, you get 2 points for every digital. You get 2 points for every CW. You get 1 point for every voice. So there's a lot of other little things that any class can get. And sorry for breaking in on you, David.
That's okay. You know more about it than I do. But I would say, please don't be discouraged. And maybe we'll do another session after field day. Please don't. I don't want submitting your results to sound like you're doing my taxes.
Don't They're not that hard.
It's not that hard, and even though the form is kind of big and complicated for a non-club operation, you're not filling in all the blanks. So I do want to, please don't be discouraged. Let's
And if
see.
anyone needs any help, I'm more than willing to help them with the actual submission stuff. I've had it for years.
Also, the logging programs really help you on this because
They do.
Yeah, and that's why I was recommending a couple logging programs that have specifically updated for Field Day 2020.
It's like, yeah, and it's not like with other contests where you need to submit a complete log or anything like that. They just need a summary for the most part. All the stations that you worked and all that.
Sorry. Next question.
Submitting logs, that's the question I have.
Hang on. So let's do them in order. Paul is the next person who had his hand up. Paul, can you? And then we have Al and Michael after that.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. So a clarification on the aggregation. I'm thinking of operating from Clallam County. So with respect to the aggregation rules this year, there's no restriction on your QTH. You could essentially be anywhere in the country.
No, it's basically your own field day.
Yes.
And you just add all the different field days together.
Very cool.
You can also make Canadian contacts and DX contacts. We've had them in the past.
Excellent. Good to know.
But you can operate from anywhere. So.
Okay. Our next question is Al, and then Michael after that.
Regarding QRP, Ivy said it's a multiplier of 5. Without that, and you're under 100 watts, 150 watts, I guess it's a multiplier of 1. But can I work someone at 100 watts or non-QRP, regardless of power? And thank you for the contact. I'm going to drop down to 5 watts and try again. Can I do them back?
No,
I
it's
think
you
start stay the same class and category for the entire
contest,
field day period.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. Well, say if you work somebody at 100 watts and then you decide to go up to 1,000 watts, that disqualifies you for the 2 times.
Yeah, your multiplier is determined by the highest power you used at any time in field day.
And what call sign do we use out in the field?
It's your own field day, so.
It's your own call sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Think of the club aggregation as an extra overlay for this year. You're doing your own field day, you're operating on your own and all that. And then they've just added this other angle to it, so to speak, where they're going to add up scores for people that want them added up for a club as a separate means of comparison.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So our next question is from Michael.
Oh, I don't really have any questions. I think it's
or
all
comment.
understandable. Though I'm actually considering also having an info table or pop-up sitting out since I live pretty much on a main road. CW Beach is going to be held from the rural areas of King County this year. I'll see how many guys want to come out. I wouldn't worry about a logger that does a Cabrillo file because you're not going to be submitting a Cabrillo file. They just really, like Phil said, want a summary, so that's fine. You will find that, who's going to get K7 LED?
Oh, yeah. It has to be on the air.
Yeah, so that's, I figured I'd wait and see what we get in terms of host signups, and then we could have a separate discussion amongst the potential hosts to fight over. Because, there's only going to be one, because, within a field day operation, right, within the rules. So,
right.
So I figured that might be contentious. But I think, Michael, if you're going to do a significant CW operation, that would get the club call the most points. So Ivy has raised me up good, and she has me very points oriented. When I think about field day, she's got me very how do we win? How do we win? So
I like
that could be tempting, but I wanted to kind of see where we fell out in terms of who had what plans and what capabilities.
Well, I have to send out some email to the CW Beach guys to see who wants to show up. It could just be me in a tent out in the backyard with a generator. But we'll see.
Okay.
I think CW will probably give you the biggest bang for the buck.
I would like, just sort of directionally, I would like the club call sign to be on the air. I would like the club call to, be in the books for this year. I'd hate to go a year and have no K7 LED on the air.
Yeah, that would be a shame.
The other thing I might want to mention is ever since the quarantine's been in effect, there's been let's just call it an enhancement to the contest since then. 7QP, WPX was just a couple weekends ago. They had a record number of entries this year. It's just there's a lot of people sitting home getting on the radio. So there's likely to be an overwhelming number of 1Ds this year. And the fact that they can make points is kind of nice. So
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, just think, a lot of clubs like ours will all be operating individually, so there will be a tremendously amplified number of transmitters on the air, stations on the air this year.
Yeah, I mean, we could have 30 or 40, 50 stations on the air instead of 6, right?
Yeah, 6 or 8, yeah.
Sunday morning might not be so slow. Who knows? So I have on a 1E here from the N7WA Superstation, and maybe we'll have 2E. We'll see.
Yeah, and one thing to consider for people that don't have HF, of course, you're welcome to join with someone that does, but there could be so many more stations on the air that it's profitable even to operate VHF and to make regional contacts.
And I don't think there's any prohibition against working from home. Say you're a UHF VH guy, and then going off and working from somebody else's station from HF.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You just
the
can't
only
make
restriction is the same restriction you always have. You can't work the station you move to for points on your other station.
That's
correct.
All right, I'm going to bow out.
Okay, Gil was waving his hand and I didn't see it in the video. So
And
Gil,
so did Sam.
Okay, you guys need to raise your hand in the app, and raising your hand in the app, you go to participants, or you can click on your own name and select raise the hand, because there's more than one page and I don't see people raising their hand in the video necessarily. So Gil, go ahead, and then Sam after Gil.
Okay. I do not understand where I would put the club name, and I just don't see where I wrote it. Okay, Mike and Key at ARRL. Let's say I'm using M1NN. Do I just put that in the comments for each and every entry? Or when I submit it, do I make a file and send it to Dear ARRL? That whole scenario, I don't understand.
It goes in, if you use M1NM, it goes into the contest page. There's a special club field in that page, and you just fill in the name. It gets saved into the summary sheet, which you upload to the ARRL.
And what was that page again?
If you're using NM, you tell it to start up a contest. In that contest, there's a set of properties you need to fill in.
But
that's where you put it.
However, since Field Day only requires your aggregated score and you don't have to upload the file if you don't want to, you don't even need to do all that. All you have to do, all you need to make sure that you do is enter the club name when you submit your Field Day submission, and that's going to be, I'm sharing the screen again now. That's going to be it's going to be on the form. There's a club or group name line, and you'll enter Mike and Key ARC, and I will send this out later today in email as well with all the links and all of this information.
Make sure you put up the URL to make the submission. I have heard nothing about that yet. Okay. Next.
Sam? And then after Sam will be Stephen again. Or Michelle, sorry.
Is there any way when you're consolidating all these inputs to look for duplicates of two people getting the same contact on the same band, which is a duplicate in the old way?
It's not a duplicate because it's under your call sign.
Yes, so everybody, as Phil mentioned, everybody will be doing their own field day and submitting their own results. So as long as you be careful to not have duplicates within your own results, that's fine. The aggregate score for the club is the total of the club scores. It's not a combination of everybody's individual activities into a single entry, if that makes sense. So you do your own field day entry with your own logging and your own scoring. And then once that's submitted, they're just going to take the total of those scores and attribute that to the club. There's no reconciliation of contacts within or between individual participants.
So there could be 30 contacts with the same person on the same band.
Yes, that would be great.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
Okay, next person is Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle, and then Stephen, and then Ivy.
Well, good morning, everyone. Great get together here, David. Thank you. I have a comment kind of, in the past, there's always been a rule about changing bands. And once you change bands, you have to remain on that band for at least, I believe, 10 minutes. And so you can't be swapping back and forth every 30 seconds looking for contacts.
This is not a rule for field day. It never has been. It's only in some of the DXCC contests where this rule applies. So if you look at the field day rules, you won't find any of those restrictions.
Okay, well, it used to be. So years ago anyway. I know we had that published stuff. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
So a suggestion to David, and maybe bring in some of the people that are better suited with N1MM or the N3JF, the other software, to have a separate session to go over configuration of that, so that they get any. I mean, if someone's new to N1MM, how do they configure it? Things like this. Have a separate working session to go through and address any of those issues. The same thing if they're doing the N3 software as well. Make sure that they've got all the stuff set up, and then probably a session in July to basically help people walk through submitting the information to the club to ARL, so that it's done correctly, and so we don't miss anything. So just an idea, David.
Yeah, sounds like we just figured out what the program is for the next club meeting.
Sorry about that for making more work for you, but I think that's probably going to help people understand.
Might be the blind leading the blind, because I don't know how they work either, but I'll figure it out.
Mike is a good expert on N1MM, and Scott's used Scott's used all of them before, so I mean either one. I mean, those might be good things. So just ideas.
Okay, so Ivy, go ahead. You're next.
Yeah, I have a little experience with the software that we've been using for the club, because I go around after field day and sort of clean up everybody's submissions. One thing, when you do the submissions for your points online, they will actually send you a lovely email with a bit of a summary of all of your points and such. What would be wonderful is if you could take that summary and then turn around and email it to fieldday at K7 or mikeandkey.org, because I believe we have a field day email. You could email it to that, so we as a club would sort of have an idea of all the people who've linked in with it. I hadn't discussed this with David, but I think this would be a really great idea, and I'm very willing to one-on-one help anyone with the submission, because I've been doing it for a few years, so got a little experience.
The alias is set up.
Same here.
What's that?
The alias is set up as an auto forward. It goes to Ivy and David.
Okay. Yeah, you could send it to us and we could keep a running total of who's got points, you know, and maybe how we're doing. As long as we beat New Jersey, I'm happy.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?